What up, y'all? It's TTAR, and this is Pokemon X and Y's scrapped original story. We're covering the 5th video on it, and it's only been getting crazier as we go through this, but we're slowly starting to figure out whether it's a hoax or not. Last time we covered stuff on the original gym leaders. They're all supposed to be sports themed. Wolfric was supposed to be much more interesting with the plot involving Mewtwo, which is the Pokemon village he watches over. Mewtwo's in there, as well as Olympia being a much more important character. She's the 7th gym leader, right? She's like the last one you fight before you challenge Lysander and finish the Team Flare plot. And Olympia always did have that over-the-top design. And what's interesting is, in the anime, there's this character that pops up called Olympica. Look at this image of her. She's like some kind of fortune teller. It appears in a Pokemon X, Y, and Z anime special, and she has this clairvoyant power as well, and the information she relays is concerning Xerneas and Yveltal. This alleged leak that we have here is from 2.5 years before that special ever comes out, and it also specifically links Olympia to being connected to Xerneas and Yveltal. So it's kind of funny how that worked out, even as a coincidence. And so we talked about this last time, but it brings a cool idea of what could have happened in the original X and Y if Olympia was meant to be a more important clairvoyant character. You would have Lysander, who, after forming Team Flare, he would have found Olympia, the descendant, and had her tell him where Xerneas and Yveltal were, and even he could have done it under the guise of being the good Lysander guy, right? The guy who runs Lysander Cafe. So he could have peacefully gotten all the information out of Olympia without her even knowing he's evil. Though that would have been a kind of cool reveal for Lysander if he kept up this innocent act, and instead of him admitting to you over like the holocaster that he's a member of Team Flare, instead it's when you go to Olympia that, since she's clairvoyant, that she can just straight up tell you there's something off with Lysander. That would be a cool way to reveal it. I wanted to bring that up because we're being fair to this leak, and that is a pretty big coincidence. If that was one of the lost notes about what Olympia's character was supposed to be, that's exactly what they created when they got a chance to expand on it. Okay, let's keep going. The Elite Four didn't go through any major changes that I've heard of, although Malva originally wasn't associated with Team Flare during the initial Aliens plot. Bro, honestly, this makes sense because Malva being a part of Team Flare went nowhere. She might as well not have been a part of Team Flare. It was either an afterthought that they thought would be cool. Hey, look, one of the Elite Four members in bed with Team Flare. I was actually thinking more of her real purpose being scrapped. Like, I think it would have been cool if Lysander's the first in command and the second in command is Malva, and she's known as an Elite Four member, and you would go into Lysander's hideout, see Malva there, and sense the betrayal that one of the core Elite Four members is with Team Flare. It shows how much of a grip Lysander had on the region. That's kind of more of what I expected. So you know what? I think this leaker took their guess of which Malva's side might have been the case. I don't think he picked right. I get the sense that she was supposed to have a bigger role. It wasn't an afterthought. Seabold was a younger woman, but likely changed to have an even distribution of genders. You know what kind of would have been cool? I probably shouldn't say this. We have so much to go through. So if there was one arc before you made it to Lysander's hideout and got to stop Team Flare, and this arc didn't involve Team Flare, it involved you doing something else. Like maybe, since Olympia is the 7th gym leader, on your way to Olympia, you find out she's not at her gym and you have to get her from wherever she went to. And maybe on the way to finding her, right, you find out that wherever she is, let's say she's in some cave or something, that she's being harassed by Team Flare. And when you try to help her, freaking Malva is there. And this is when you get an arc where you get to battle Malva, the second in command, right? And they could have done something cool where when she fights you, it's her Elite Four theme. And then after Team Flare is dissolved at the end of the game, when you go to the final Elite Four in the Pokemon League, that she's not actually a member of the Elite Four, that there's a different fire member. I was going somewhere with that, but I freaking lost interest. Let's keep going. A few more Mega Evolutions were planned, but the decision was made to drop them as was felt introducing too many Mega Evolutions at once would cheapen the new mechanic. So Pokemon XY introduced what, 72 Pokemon, 30 Mega Evolutions. This actually formed a proper Pokedex, over 100 Pokemon, which is how much a new gen usually introduces. So the final Pokedex ended up working out with their current number. Maybe they wanted to do like 50 in X and Y, and then like another 30 in Auras, 80 Mega Evolutions. That would cheapen the gimmick. And the design team was a bit apprehensive over how well the mechanic would go over with fans. It's natural that they would feel this way, and this one is believable. Obviously, they changed the whole scope of Pokemon with Mega Evolution. People hated it at first. We all forget it, but we're like, What is happening to Pokemon? What is this Lucario? At this point, the team feels positive, and it's likely that more Mega Pokemon will appear in the future. With better implementation and a more risky approach towards altering existing Pokemon's playstyles. Okay, well, this was posted 2 months before ORAS would be announced. They weren't wrong in that. How long ago did you talk to these Game Freak employees? Because when you say it is likely that more Mega Pokemon will appear in the future, it sounds like you have no idea that Mega Pokemon are about to appear in ORAS. Or else they would have said it more confidently, unless they're just trying not to ruin it. Let's keep going. Fennekin originally had a more feminine design throughout all of its evolutions. Braixen remains the closest to its original incarnation, and was intended to be a fire fairy line at one point, but it was decided making one of the starters a brand new type would offset the balance. They're never balanced in the starters. That sounds exactly like what was supposed to happen. A Fire Fairy Delphox. Maybe it would have looked more reminiscent of like Ninetales, right? Something more serene in its design. So it was changed to Fire Psychic. Furthermore, Chesnaught was originally meant to be Grass Steel, but in the end was changed to Grass Fighting to create better balance. Chesnaught especially, that fighting typing comes out of nowhere. It doesn't even have a fighting signature move. It's this Pokemon that's bulky and bulletproof, as is one of its abilities. This is something I could get behind. Froakie is probably the least changed starter. It was always more or less intended to be the ninja we ended up with. So, Fire Fairy, Grass Steel, Water Dark. Honestly, it probably would have been fine if they kept it Fire Fairy. The starter's always going to be off balance, and even though it sounds like it wasn't going to work, it would have worked. Pyroar was originally going to have more differences between the genders besides appearance, but that idea was instead carried over to the Meowstic duel. What are you talking about, bro? That's a whole other Pokemon. I guess they're saying on their bucket list of things they wanted to do for X and Y, one of them was they wanted to design a Pokemon with crazy gender differences. And so they were trying to do that with Pyroar. Then they thought, nah, F it, let's try again. And they did Meowstic. I suppose that would have been really cool. At the least, if the two Pyroars had a different signature move. Even if their stats are the same, Pyroar has a crazy stat total of 507. And they got interesting Pokedex entries, right? Just go to the X and Y ones. The male with the largest mane of fire is the leader of the Pride. So the male Pyroar, they could have had a signature move called like Fiery Mane, where it boosts their stats. And then it says the females protect the Pride cubs. So I suppose you could have had for the female Pyroars like a move called Fiery Guard, just a counterpart with the exact same wording. And this one would be pretty much what we got with Gouging Fire. So a fire type protect, which is something they introduced starting with X and Y, right? King Shield and Spiky Shield. They could have done that for the female Pyroar, and that would have boosted their stocks. So those entries are the early thoughts for Pyroar. Later on, they build on the idea of Pyroar, where they make the males lazy and say the females do all the work. So while the males are going around doing stuff, the females work together and hunt prey and bring it to the family. The females of a pride work together to bring down prey. It's thanks to them that their pride doesn't starve. The males are usually lazy. Yo, I got a cool idea. We can combine their early Pyroar idea I just mentioned with their new one later down the line, right? You could have made it so Pyroar, the male ones, get this signature move called Fiery Mane, right? And it actually does an insane amount of damage, like 150 damage, and it's a fire move with 100 accuracy. Which means if they use it and it's even neutral, it'd probably OHKO the enemy. But you give male Pyroars Truant, which means they're useless. Don't use them. So you make it so you have to catch the female Litleos and evolve it to the Lioness to not get the Truant Pyroar. But honestly, that's actually a fun idea. But the thing is, not everyone is gonna jump into the metagame, so what Game Freak would just want to build is abilities that generally work in the main game. For you to work hard, especially if you don't know, for you to work hard, catch a Litleo, and then it has Truant when it evolves, it's gonna be too confusing to people, so they probably wouldn't do that anyway. Or, I suppose you could make it so that signature move, after you use it, it always puts Pyroar to sleep. So don't give him Truant, just give him that signature move. That way, new Pokemon fans would be able to try that signature move, realize it's ass, and never use it again. But then you get to the metagame, and you can actually embrace the lazy Pyroar, where you try to, I don't know, skill swap Insomnia onto male Pyroar to try to spam those moves. Yo, that's actually a good idea. Shank that like button, my dudes, and let's see where this leads us next time. Comment down below. Hoax or no hoax? I think we're at the end of this. Just one or two of these left, and then I'll give you my final conclusion on what this probably is. But so far, it's looking pretty believable. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.